Jai Bhagwan Women Warriors, and welcome to today's Empowerment Talk. So today we are discussing the issue of digestion, which, for the record, is one of the most important and key pieces in Ayurveda as it pertains to health. When our gut is in a good space, then our brain is in a good space, and then our life is in a good space. So I often will talk about the idea of an infant or a child that is still wearing diapers, and when they are fussy and they don't feel comfortable, there's usually something going on in the belly. And then as soon as elimination happens, they pull out that happy baby pose, so to speak. So it's no different when we're adults. A lot of our brain fog, anxiety, maybe even crankiness, irritability, anger, frustration, anything that takes us away from balance and joy really has everything to do with the gut. So if you're ever feeling any of those imbalanced kinds of things, the best thing for you to check in with is your gut. So bad gut, shortened life. That's just something for us to all keep in mind. There are actually 4 types of what we call Agni. So digestion is called Agni in Ayurveda, and Agni means fire, or our digestive fire. It actually comes from the English root word to ignite, or rather Sanskrit came before English, so I think you understand what I mean. But and Agni was actually the god of fire, and because there's a bunch of iconography around all of the different Ayurvedic terms. So the god Agni had 4 different forms. And so the first one is known as Sam Agni. And I'm going to read you some qualities of Sam Agni. It's considered balanced Agni. And Sam Agni is generally when you can reasonably digest a good quantity of food without any issues. And we tolerate changes in the weather and the seasons quite gracefully. And individuals enjoy a balanced digestion, absorption, and elimination, as well as a surplus of ojas, so our mojo, our immunity, tejas, good digestive fire, and prana, so good flow, good life force, if you would, and strong immunity. And so in many ways, Sama Agni is like the holy grail of digestion. It's like, if we can all just be in a Sama Agni space, life would be perfect. However, we do live in the West, and we do incorporate these physical bodies. And so our digestion, maybe for a couple of minutes, can be in a Sama Agni state, but for the most part, how things are functioning in the world right now, unfortunately, is in one of the other 3 stages. So the first one is called, the second one rather, is called Visham Agni. And Visham Agni is what we consider irregular metabolism. And the doshic culprit around this irregular metabolism is Vata. So I'll read you some pieces with that. Visham Agni is associated with excess Vata. Visham Agni is therefore irregular and erratic in nature, and it can change on a dime. So if you feel like your digestion kind of fluctuates a lot, and believe it or not, most people have Visham Agni, but if you feel like they can fluctuate a lot, chances are you're in that space. Visham Agni causes things like irregular appetite, variable digestion, indigestion, abdominal distension, gas, gurgling intestines, and constipation, or you can alternate between constipation and loose stools or diarrhea. So, and it can give kind of a colicky pain, so to speak. Other symptoms of Visham Agni include things like a dry mouth, receding gums, dry skin, cracking joints, sciatica, low backache, hemorrhoids, muscle spasms, and believe it or not, insomnia. So when we don't have steady, restful sleep, the digestion, because remember, digestion is not just what happens in the gut, but rather all of the experiences that we have throughout the day. And if we're feeling erratic and imbalanced and from one extreme to another on the emotional side of things, Visham Agni is being activated. So something to keep in mind. Emotionally, also Visham Agni tends to cause anxiety, fear, and insecurity. So here's the key, folks. Many people suffer from fear, insecurity, and anxiety, whether today, tomorrow, maybe speckled throughout your week, etc. We have those experiences. It's part of the human experience. So again, dial in the digestion. Dial it in, dial it in. When we have that fluctuating digestion, we have fluctuating lives. So one of the keys with it is routine, routine, routine. Eating at the same times, going to bed at the same times, having food that is warm and lubricated, really trying to withdraw from our emotional responses and really just being very in tune with being inward. Those things will help. The third type of Agni or digestive process is known as Tikshna Agni. And this is hypermetabolism. And the culprit behind this one is Pitta. So it is digestion that is a little too hot and a little too sharp. So Tikshna Agni is associated with excess Pitta, and specifically Pitta's light and hot qualities that are also spreading like a spreading fire. And it can cause some inflammation inside of the stomach, and it can be overactive and can create hypermetabolism. So individuals who have Tikshna Agni have somewhat insatiable appetites. It's like, I can't eat enough and feel satisfied. And that's because the fire inside of the belly is just burning things up, burning things up, burning things up. And it's not absorbing the nutritive value of the food, or it's not gaining the nutritive value of the experience. So again, body, mind, heart, the whole thing is associated. And so there are things that one experiences with Tikshna Agni: hyperacidity, acid indigestion, gastritis, heartburn, believe it or not, hot flashes. So it is not uncommon for women who are perimenopausal, menopausal, and even postmenopausal to experience a lot of Tikshna Agni, as well as things like fever and acidic saliva. So that's something that you can tell in the mouth if things have a pungent taste in the stomach. Emotionally, Tikshna Agni tends to trigger things like anger, or believe it or not, hate, envy, irritability, aggressiveness, those kinds of hot emotions. And one of the big ones with Tikshna Agni is the desire to control. So if we think about this, the fire, the digestive fire, when it is heated up in that Tikshna kind of way, it starts to spread. And so the immediate reaction is, I've got to control the fire, I've got to control the fire. So if we feel like we have to control things in our lives, that is a Tikshna Agni experience. And also, Tikshna Agni can bring about things like judgment, like harsh judgment of individuals. And it's often accompanied with the intensity of I'm right and you're wrong kind of emotions. So something to keep in mind as it relates to that. One of the things that I noticed when my Tikshna Agni has activated in the past is that I crave sweet. And the reason why we crave sweet is because that is the balancing feature with Tikshna Agni. And so if the fire is just insatiable and it's burning and burning, that sweet taste will start to calm the flames, so to speak. And then finally, our fourth type of Agni is known as Manda Agni. And this is directly associated with Kapha dosha. And it is considered hypometabolism, so things that are very slow and often a little bit dull. Manda Agni dulls the appetite, it slows the metabolism, and it can cause symptoms of heaviness in the stomach, heaviness in the body, and heaviness in the mind, especially after eating. But sometimes it can even cause that heaviness without food. Sometimes it's just like, ugh, I don't have an appetite, and I just kind of feel heavy and sluggish, etc. That is a Manda Agni situation. Manda Agni often leads to things like frequent colds, congestion, coughs, as well as allergies, edema, and lymph congestion. So everything having to do with the earth and water elements that make up Kapha dosha. It can also cause things like over salivation, nausea, vomiting, hypertension, hypoglycemia, diabetes, hypothyroidism, excess weight, and obesity. So those are just some examples of where Manda Agni, that sluggishness, can really start to cause that very imbalanced kapha and heaviness. Mentally and emotionally, Manda Agni can cause things like lethargy and boredom, attachment, greed, as well as possessiveness, and this very heavy desire for excess sleep. So if we think about sometimes when we get sick during quote flu season, which for the record is really just excess sugar in the body, if you eliminate or really limit your sugar content during the holidays, chances are in January and February, the flu season will not happen to you. But that being said, these desires to sleep it off, etc., and we don't have energy or we don't feel like we have good movement are symptoms of Manda Agni. So that's what I have for you folks today. So this is the thing: do the general guidelines that allow for these symptoms to not creep in. Eat at consistent times. Make lunch your largest meal. Make sure that your food is cooked so that it has that pre-digested state, that you're getting good oils in your diet, and that you're eating until 75% full. You are not eating in front of the television. You are not having business lunches that can cause high emotions, etc., and that you can really focus on your food. If you start doing those things, your digestion will land in perfect order. Is it always going to be perfect? Absolutely not. 90% of the time it won't be perfect, but you will notice those slight changes, and that will make all of the difference in the world so that you can get it right back into balance. I hope all of you are doing well. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Jai Bhagwan.